Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth Sunday of Lent. And in today's gospel, we encounter the woman who is caught in adultery. And what's interesting there's a lot of things that are interesting, but what's especially interesting is, of course, today we find that anyone being stoned to death, period, is, I guess, cringeworthy, right? We don't do that, all right? But if we put ourselves in people's shoes 2,000 years ago, this really was the sentence for someone who was caught in adultery, okay? And this was part of Moses's law, all right? And so really what's going on here is just a punishment that's being carried out for someone who is caught who has sinned. And the reason that the punishment was so extreme is because it was seen that this person not only committed a personal fault, but it was considered illegal, and it was considered especially heinous against God and against the community and against the temple. Okay? So sometimes, first of all, we lose what's going on. And also, because we lose what's going on, we tend to think that Jesus is just more in touch with like the 21st century, and that's what makes him such a good guy, that he saved this woman. That's not what's going on. Remember, the law was given to us by God, okay? So it was just that it was given to meet and satisfy Israel where they were at when they originally got it. Now, when Jesus comes, Jesus is concerned with what and why things are happening, okay? And so first of all, it's interesting that they don't just carry out the sentence, okay? She's been caught in adultery, so what's the problem? But you see, it's because of what the Pharisees are trying to do to Jesus that they bring this person who's already been guilty and they throw her in front of Jesus and they say, well, what do you think? All right? And this is where the glory of God can be manifested. And what Jesus says is nothing. He goes and he starts to write on the ground, and there's a lot of different interpretations about what he might have been doing to write on the ground. But they just don't stop. And so finally, he just says to them, whichever one of you is innocent, go ahead and throw the first stone. Okay, and then he bends down again and he starts writing on the ground. And we hear that sooner or later, all of the Pharisees start to walk away. Everyone who has stones in their hands begins to walk away. Okay, so the law, which had said that this person should be punished in this way, God is now fulfilling. Okay, he is no longer, this isn't a change, this is a fulfillment. This used to be what happened to people who broke the law. But now Jesus is coming in the fullness of time, and he is saying, you no longer are caring about righteousness of the law. This is no longer about keeping Israel pure, right? That's why these things happened in the first place. Now you're just being vindictive and cruel and murderous. All right? And we're being called now to a purity of heart. I mean, that's the whole point. Why did they bring her to him? If this was truly about justice in God's eyes, if this was truly about keeping covenant, it wouldn't have been an issue. They wouldn't have brought her to Jesus. But they're doing this to be cruel. And so now Jesus, and we don't know what he wrote on the ground. Some say it was the sins of the people who were ready to throw the rocks. They've all walked away. And now Jesus is looking at this person and he asks them, have any condemned you? And she says, no. And so Jesus says, neither do I condemn you. And we always forget about this last line, go and sin no more. All right. Now, are we to believe that afterwards she didn't sin again for the rest of her life? I highly doubt it. Okay. But what is important is that the task that has been given to her is quite high. And that's where we need to there's a few lessons to be taken from this. Well, one of the lessons is that God will meet us where we are at. This lady stood condemned before God himself. Okay, so God met her where she was at. He saved her, but then he said, go and sin no more. when we go to God and we need our mercy, that's wonderful. When we go to confession, that's great. But one of the things that we all have probably noticed after confession is that we just go and do the same thing. And we really need to ask for God's grace for that confession, for that realization that we're before God, to really participate with his grace to try to improve. God meets us where we are at, but he does call us to become the saints that we are asked to be. Okay, so is there a plan? What is the thing that we are going to do to really say that we are not going to do this anymore? I confess I'm going to avoid the mere occasion of sin. Okay, so I really am going to promise not to do this anymore. I'm really going to make it try. This is something that we're reforming in our life, and that's part of Lent, right? I'm looking at these patterns of sin in my life, and I'm really going to try with the grace of God to break them. This also helps us to reflect on who's the one who I want to throw right in front of Jesus and say, well, what are you going to do about this one? Okay, because I'm sure we wouldn't want that done to us. All right, it's easy to talk about justice, but are we ready for that same kind of justice that we're talking about for others? And so as we approach the table of the Lord today, especially during this Lent, let us ask Jesus for a greater purity of heart, for mercy to be bestowed on others, just as we would like that mercy to be bestowed on us, and for a true, sincere will of repentance, that not only when we receive that mercy, we'll get that mercy, but also that we will go out and that we will do our best to sin no more, so that one day we may see Jesus in heaven face to face.